Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're going to get into the principles that really built the foundation, the stability of the early Muslim state right at the beginning under its first leader, Abu Bakr. We're going to explore how this divine promise of security was directly tied to two big things: the character of the people and, just as importantly, the unwavering resolve of their leader. So right off the bat, this verse lays out a really powerful promise, doesn't it? Authority on earth and security instead of fear. But you gotta notice that key phrase, those who have believed and done righteous deeds. This isn't just a blank check. The security, the stability that's being promised here, it's all conditional. And that really sets the stage for the specific requirements we're about to unpack. All right, so let's start with that core promise. It's all about a direct link between divine support and human action. You see, the goal here isn't just power for the sake of power. It's about laying the foundation for a truly just and secure society. And that brings us to this key concept, istikhlaf. This is so important. It completely reframes the idea of authority. It's not a tool for domination, not at all. It's a responsibility. The whole point, the ultimate goal, is to build that state of security and justice, and it has to be rooted firmly in faith and good deeds. Okay, so what are these conditions? Well, the first one isn't about laws or political structures. It's about the inner character of the people themselves. What qualities did they actually need to have to earn this promise? Wow, okay, so this quote, it really paints a fascinating picture of a community's character. You notice that duality here, right? Humble toward believers on one side and powerful against the disbelievers on the other. It's describing a group that is internally so compassionate and supportive, but externally they are absolutely firm and unyielding when faced with injustice. And you have to understand, these weren't just, nice ideas on a poster. The source material presents them as the lived reality of that generation led by Abu Bakr. They really embodied this humility with each other and, at the same time, this strength against outside threats. And it was all driven by a commitment to their cause that was so strong, it completely outweighed any fear of criticism. And this is really where the theory meets history. The text basically argues that because Abu Bakr and his companions had these specific attributes, because they lived them, they were the ones who fulfilled the conditions. And as a result, they were the ones who received that promised security. Okay, so that covers the character of the individual. But how do you scale that up to an entire society? I mean, personal piety is one thing, right? But the next condition is all about building a collective system, a whole society based on that faith. You can think of this verse as a kind of blueprint for governance. Authority isn't for personal gain or glory. It's a mandate to establish a very specific kind of social order. This includes things like establishing prayer, giving zakah, which is a form of mandatory charity for social welfare, and actively, promoting good. So you've got these 4 pillars, right? And what they do is pretty amazing. They effectively turn individual faith into a public program. Prayer gives you that spiritual foundation. Zakah creates economic justice. And those last 2, promoting good and preventing wrong, they establish a really clear moral compass for the entire society. And this gets to a really core insight from the source material. There was no separation between what we might call the secular and the sacred. An honest business deal, that was an act of worship. Good governance, that was an act of worship too. Everyday life was just seamlessly integrated into their faith. This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, leadership. Look, it's one thing to have principles when times are good, right? But the real test is upholding them when you're under pressure. And that's where the leader's firmness becomes absolutely essential. Men, the early Muslim state faced a perfect storm of crises right after the Prophet's death. You can see the pressures right here: rebellion, challenges to the core beliefs, huge external military threats, and in every single case, Abu Bakr's response wasn't political compromise. It was unwavering resolve. He just refused to bend the rules, even when it might have been the easier thing to do. And listen to this quote from one of his companions. It really shows you how high the stakes were. He says their attitude could almost have led to our doom. It was Abu Bakr's absolute refusal to compromise on the principle of zakat that is credited with holding that incredibly fragile state together. And that's a really important point to get, right? His firmness, it wasn't just him being stubborn. It was about a core belief that to receive that divine support, all the conditions had to be met, with 0 exceptions. By treating every single pillar of the faith as non-negotiable, he was safeguarding the very foundation of their society. And so, here's the outcome. According to the source, because all 3 conditions were met, The right character in the people, the right structure for society, and the right resolve from the leader, the promise was fulfilled. All that chaos and fear from the wars was replaced by the promised security and stability. So this leaves us with a really powerful question that goes way beyond this specific history. How are societies shaped by the principles their leaders refuse to compromise? It really seems that what's deemed non-negotiable in a moment of crisis can ultimately define the entire future of a nation.